Hi, my name is Josh Carmen, and I'm your host for today. Welcome to the Crossings online service. We watch these together right now on Facebook and YouTube on Saturdays at 5:30 p.m. and Sundays at 9:15 and 11:15. And they stay up all week long so you can watch them again and share them with your friends and family. These videos kick us off each week, plus we have a free daily Bible study for you to try. There are 3 ways to access this. You can get it on our website at thecrossing.com or app, which is the Crossing CM that you can download in the App Store or the Google Play Store, or you can pick up a hard copy anytime you're on campus for our gatherings at 9:15 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. on Sundays. Currently, we're in a series called Our Finest Hour. We are living in a time of crisis. We all know this. But with the right perspective, a crisis can be an opportunity for exponential change and growth and courage. I promise. And so if you're wondering how you're going to make it through this time, make it through this fire without getting burnt out or burnt up, then this is the series for you. You see, we believe this will be our finest hour.
If we are now called upon to endure what they have been suffering, we shall emulate their courage. And if final victory rewards our toils, they shall share the gains. I and freedom shall be restored to all. The whole fury and might of the enemy will very soon be turned on us. Let us, therefore, brace ourselves to our duty, and so bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
Welcome, everyone. On September 9th, 1965, Naval Officer James Stockdale was flying a mission over North Vietnam. His plane was shot down, and he parachuted into a village where he was captured and held prisoner for the next 7 years in the infamous Hanoi Hilton. As a senior naval officer, he was routinely tortured, beaten to the point of death, and then placed without any medical treatment into a 3-foot by 9-foot cell with no windows. Finally, after 7 long years, he was freed. And when he was asked how he survived 7 excruciating years of physical, emotional, and psychological trauma, he responded with just 10 words. Are you ready for them? You may want to write them down. He said, "I never lost faith in the end of the story." In a place of unimaginable pain and suffering, the thing that kept him going day in and day out was the belief that this was not how his story was going to end. Now, why am I sharing this with you today? It's because we are in a series called Our Finest Hour, where we are talking about the things that we face today. That whatever obstacle or pain point or loss you are going through in your life today, that this is not how your story is going to end. That God is calling you to something more. And we are already seeing that around here today. For example, this past week, we were part of a citywide initiative called Love Costa Mesa. And we here at The Crossing, we had over 100 people who have already stepped in to help our schools, to serve elderly neighbors, to write encouraging letters, and to donate blood. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. These are people who are stepping up, who are making a difference, and they're doing it because they believe God has called us for such a time as this. They are believing that today can be our finest hour. So here's what I'd like to ask you to do. I want you to take a second right now, and I want you to share this video on Facebook or YouTube. Even if you're watching it after it premiered, I want you to do this because when people come across this video online, it will provide an opportunity for God to move in their lives, for God to provide some hope to people who potentially desperately need it. Now, over the last few weeks, we've been looking at the book in the Bible called Daniel. This is our third week, or third episode in the series. So if you missed the first two, you may want to go back and watch those to catch up. Now, a little catch up on the story of Daniel. Daniel and his three friends, they are from the nation of Israel. They worship the God of the Bible, known as Yahweh. And they're attacked by King Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian army, who back then was the world's superpower. And Babylon wins easily. They overpower and destroy Israel, and they end up taking the best and the brightest from Israel, and they bring them all the way back to Babylon to indoctrinate them into their culture. Now, Daniel and his friends are part of the hundreds who would have been taken to Babylon, who, upon arriving in Babylon, would have been introduced to an incredibly diverse culture, a culture that was incredibly violent and promiscuous, a culture that flaunted its wealth and power. Now, Daniel and his three close friends, they surprisingly rise to positions of great influence, and they do this while staying true to the God of the Bible, which brings us to the story I want to look at today. If you have a Bible with you, I want you to open up to Daniel chapter 3. If you don't have a Bible nearby, that's okay. You can actually use our app. It's totally free. You can download that on Google Play or iTunes, and I want you to jump in with us because we are going to be in Daniel chapter 3, verse 1. Here's what it says. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and he set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Now, 60 cubits ends up being about 90 feet high. So just for some context, if you've ever been on our campus, our auditorium, the building of where our auditorium is, it's about 45 feet tall. So it is approximately double the height of our auditorium. Now this statue, we don't know exactly what it's a statue of, but it is made of gold. And after this statue is erected, a government official proclaims for all the people of Babylon that every day music will be played. And when the music starts, everyone in Babylon will bow down and worship this statue. And if you don't, you'll be burned alive. Got it? So from then on, every day, the band starts playing. People, they see the statue, they bow down, and it serves as a reminder to all the people of the power, the wealth, and the success of Babylon. And just about every single person does exactly what they're supposed to do, except for a small handful of Jewish boys. They refuse to bow down to the statue. So, a few guys from the government, they notice this, and they go tell the king. Here's what they say. Verse 12. They say, "But there are some Jews who you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty." Now, first off, who's missing here? You see, up until this moment, there has been one clear-cut leader for these Jewish guys. It's Daniel. And up until now, every time there has been a problem or a crisis, the person who has stepped up, who has solved it, who has led the way is Daniel. In fact, he's the guy who the book is even named after. But now all of a sudden, in the most crucial moment, Daniel is missing. Now, most scholars believe Daniel was either traveling to another country or out on assignment somewhere else during this time. And so, for the very first time, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they are about to go head to head with the most powerful person on the planet, a person who could have them killed with just one word. Verse 13. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, I want to pause here and I want to ask the question. Why is Nebuchadnezzar furious? Why does he care? What's the big deal if 3 Jewish boys from Israel refuse to bow down to a gold statue? Now, if you grew up going to church, especially if you grew up going to a conservative church, you've probably heard this story taught time and again. you've heard it told as the story of a pagan secular king who tries to suppress religious freedom. And how you've heard it told that these three boys, they stand up and they refuse to bow down at the pressure of an over-sexualized, violent, godless, secular culture. And usually the main point behind these messages is something along the lines of stand strong in the faith. Don't bend the knee when culture asks you to. Specifically, the liberal culture of the day when it asks you to compromise your faith, which is completely true. If you are a follower of Jesus, there are absolutely core truths and beliefs that we cannot cave on. For example, as a church, we believe in one true God who created all people, meaning all people matter equally to God. We also believe that only Jesus has the power to forgive sin. These are just a couple of beliefs we hold that we won't compromise. And so the way this story is generally taught is that Nebuchadnezzar is furious because he's trying to destroy people's faith in God and how it influences their values. And he's trying to replace it with his own agenda and beliefs. But I'll tell you, this is only part of the story. You see, Daniel chapter 3 is not primarily about religion or religious beliefs. You see, what Nebuchadnezzar is doing here is he's trying to take a diverse, multi-ethnic culture and create a deep nationalistic pride. And so he combines the most powerful tools at his disposal. He uses beauty and wealth. This is the 90-foot gold statue. He uses music, which creates an emotional response. And then, of course, he uses religion, which, since the beginning of time, rulers have used to twist and manipulate and control people. You see, Nebuchadnezzar's plan is that when the music is played, you will fall to your knees, and you'll remember that of all the places you could have lived, you get to live in a place of beauty, a place of wealth and power. You see, you get to live in Babylon, a country with no equal. So when these three Jewish immigrants, who, by the way, they're going around and stealing our jobs, when they refuse to pay proper respect to the statue, it is a slap in the face to the natural-born, pure, conservative, value-holding Babylonians. That's why they go to Nebuchadnezzar. You see, what is happening here is in one move, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They've gone against the liberal and the conservative, the nationalistic and the progressive. Now, some of you watching, some of you, you're wondering, Andrew, are you making a political statement right now? And if you're wondering that, you're right. I am. You see, today we live in a culture a lot like Babylon, a culture that will try to pull you from one side to the other, liberal or conservative. We live in a day where each side tries to claim the name of Jesus. In fact, today we live in a day where people, they'll say things like, oh, you can't be a Christian if you vote for blank. Or others will say, you can't be a Christian if you don't vote for blank. But when you read this book, when you read it, you will find that following God at times will put you against liberal and conservative, Green Party and libertarian. It's why at this church, and you should know this especially if you're new and just checking us out. We don't endorse candidates. We'll talk about issues. We'll talk about things like racial reconciliation or abortion or injustice. We'll talk about these things because they matter to God. But we will never endorse or align ourselves with a political party because neither party fully represents our God. And you need to know that following God at times, it will infuriate and upset the people around you. See, there's this great verse that I think we should all memorize. It's Hebrews 4:12. It says, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to the dividing soul and spirit, joint and marrow. it judges the thoughts and the attitudes of the heart. It means that this book will challenge and offend you at times. And so right now, if you're watching this and you feel yourself a little upset, or you feel that maybe I took a shot at you or your political party, maybe that's good for once. Maybe it means God is trying to speak to you today and grow you today. You see, back to Babylon. You see, the people see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They see what they do, and they are furious. They're furious. They look at these three, probably some of the ways that you're looking at me right now through the screen. And so in verse 15, Nebuchadnezzar, he gives them one last shot. He says to them, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand? Now, I like to imagine that these three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, I like to imagine that they are close enough to the furnace where they can actually see the fire, that they see the flames, that they feel the heat, that they smell the smoke. And they know that this is no bluff. Nebuchadnezzar has killed for less than what they're doing. And here's the crazy part. The only reason that they are facing this fire, the only reason that they are this close to the end, is because they are trying to be obedient to God. You see, some of you need to hear this. Sometimes following God will bring you right to the edge of the fire. See, a lot of people, they don't like to talk about this. They don't like to talk about how, sometimes things are hard. What they do like to talk about is how God answers prayers, about how God will make your life easier and better. And of course, sometimes this is true. But just as often, following God can make it harder on your life. In fact, sometimes a whole lot harder. Sometimes following God will mean you end a relationship that you don't want to walk away from. Sometimes following God will cause you to stand up to an unethical boss regardless of the repercussions. I was talking to a friend the other day who just bought a house. They live in a neighborhood they love. They have little kids, younger than even my kids. And they're in a job where some things have gone down that are just not right. And they've tried to stand up. They've tried to speak the truth in a loving and honorable way, but nothing has changed. So now, they're telling me that they clearly sense God is asking them to walk away from this job in this economy that we're in, to walk away from a paycheck, which will mean that they will need to sell their house and move away from a community they love. You see, sometimes following God will bring you to the face of the fire. Now, other times we do this to ourselves. We find ourselves in this spot because of decisions we've made. You screw up, or you lie to a loved one. And then when they find out, they're upset at you, or they leave you. Or you secretly battle an addiction. And for so long, you've told yourself, it's no big deal, I got it under control. But now it is tearing your life apart. You see, regardless of the reason, one day, all of us will come face to face with the fire. All of us are going to have a moment where we look around and we feel alone. We feel stuck, and we have nowhere to turn. Someday we're all going to wonder, is this how my story ends? Now, up to this point, Nebuchadnezzar orders the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times hotter than normal. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the amount of heat and the flames? Verse 22. Verse 22 is one of the most powerful verses in this whole story. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. And yet these 3, they never lose faith in the end of the story. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet in amazement and asked all his advisors, weren't there 3 men that were tied up and thrown into the fire? They replied, "Certainly, your majesty." He said, "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." It is in their darkest hour, when they had nowhere to turn, in their moment of greatest need, these 3 who, remember, throughout the entire story, who have been without Daniel, their leader, they find someone greater than Daniel has been with them all along. This 4th man, many scholars believe, myself included, that this is Jesus. And while they didn't see him until they faced the fire, they realized he was there the entire time. That Jesus, that he would never leave them nor forsake them. Now, one of the hardest parts of teaching this story is that it is so well known. Even if you didn't grow up going to church, odds are somewhere along the line you heard about it. And when a story is so well known, often it loses a little bit of its impact on us. In fact, right now, there is a very popular Christian song out there. It's called "Another in the Fire." And it's about this story. It's about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who face death, who defy a king, who are thrown into a furnace, and they are rescued by this mysterious 4th man. It's a great song. In fact, Kimi and our band are going to play it for us in just a second. Now, this last week, though, I saw an interview with the songwriter where he was asked, "How'd you come up with this song?" Which, since I don't have any musical ability, I'm always curious how people write songs that can speak to so many others. And so this writer of this song, this is what he says. He just says, "One day, the title just popped into my head. Another in the fire." And I was like, cool, this would be a great title of a song. I wonder if I can come up with some lyrics around it. Then I got some of my friends who are these amazing musicians to come over, and they helped me. Which, let me just pause here for 1 second. I can't even imagine a lamer beginning of a song. Can you? Oh, I just came up with a catchy title, and then I asked these great professional musicians to come over and help me write a song that regular people would like. I mean, how lame is that? I mean, up until this point, this is just a song about a cool story in the Bible. But then this musician, this artist, he goes on to say, he says, "And while we were working on this song, my son was diagnosed with autism. And in this interview, he got really honest and really raw about the pain and struggle his family has been going through. About feeling alone and lost, feeling like his family is in the fire. And overnight, this song, it went from being a catchy title about a neat story to his story. Overnight, this song became his prayer, his declaration that in the darkest moments of life, when it looks as if all is lost, there is another in the fire with us. You may not see it today, but he will never leave you nor forsake you." And so for this songwriter, this song has become an anthem. That we have a God who is by your side. A God who will give you the courage to say and believe, "I never lost faith in the end of the story." And so right now the band, they're going to sing this song over us. And what I want to ask you to do is I just simply want you to hear the lyrics of this song as a prayer, as an anthem for us. And then after this song, I'm going to give us a chance to respond to our good and gracious God.
There's a grace when my heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. Should I fall in the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. There was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how you set me free. There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. And should I fall in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning, either way I won't bow to the things of this world. I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded, the power set me free. There is a tomb that holds nobody. Now the power lives in me. There is another in the waters. Oh, there is another in the waters. Oh, I can see the light in the darkness as the darkness bows to him. I can hear the roar of the heavens as the space between whispered. I can see the ground shake beneath us as the prison walls cave in. Nothing stands between us. Nothing stands between us. There is no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and who is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. Oh, I know I will never be alone. There'll be another in the fire, standing next to me. There'll be another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminded of how good you've been to me, I'll count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. There is another in the fire. Oh, there is another in the fire. Oh.
Now, moments before Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are thrown into the fire, they say what they may believe to be their final words. They're found in verse 16 of chapter 3. They say this to the king. They say, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. That whatever happens, we are going to choose to trust in the God who goes before us, the God who is beside me." And so today I want to give us a chance to respond to this God. You see, some of you today, you are facing something right now. You are suffering or in pain, and you don't know where to turn. And so what I want to ask is, if you're in the fire right now and you feel comfortable right now on the comments on Facebook and YouTube, I just want you to put the number 1. And this will give us a chance when I pray for me to pray for you. And specifically, it will just be your acknowledgement. God, I need you. And today may be a reminder for you, an encouragement that you are not alone, that God is with you. Now, second, I believe some of you are here today because you have been on a journey and it has led you to this point. You are new to faith and Jesus, but something it's hit you today for the very first time. For the very first time, you realize that there is a God who loves you, who offers grace and forgiveness for you, for anything that you've done. And I want to give you a chance to respond to this God. And so if this is you, and this is the first time that you want to accept the free gift of grace that God has for you, I want you to write 2 in the comments right now. And this will allow our staff to follow up and encourage you and provide some great next steps. Well, now, I want to pray for each and every one of you. So God, we come before you, and we pray, God, that whatever we face today, whatever challenge, whatever difficulty, God, I pray for every single person in the fire today. Every person wondering if they're alone, that you would remind them that there is another in the fire with us, that you have never left us, you have never forsaken us. And God, today I pray also for every person who, God, you have brought them to this place today, and for the very first time, they are ready to say yes to the gift of love and mercy and forgiveness you offer. God, we love you, and we pray this in your Son's name. Amen. Now, thanks for praying with me. You know, often it's so easy to watch a video like this. But what I want to ask you to do is right now, I want to give you the gift of about 30 seconds. And what I want is just for you to reflect and answer just by yourself these 2 questions. The first question is simply, what fire are you facing today? What fire are you facing today? And then the second question is, who do you need to allow into your life to remind you that Jesus is with you, whatever you're going through today? And after about 30 seconds of this, we're going to have our student, Pastor Josh, come up, and he's going to share some next steps with you, and then we'll be done for today.
I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire, standing next to me. There is another in the waters, holding back the seas. And should I ever need reminding, the power set me free. There is a tomb that holds nobody.
Hey everyone, here's the news you need to know to have your finest hour. We have created the Finest Hour Guide to help you walk through the fires in your life. As you do the activities in the guide, you will track your progress, earn badges, and prizes. For example, when you complete 20 of the 40 days, you'll receive a cheers to your Finest Hour pint glass. The guide is available on thecrossing.com, the Crossing CM app, or as a hard copy that you can pick up when you come to one of our on-campus gatherings at 9:15 and 11:15 a.m. on Sundays. If you responded to Andrew's message today, especially the part about realizing that you're not alone in the fire, that there is someone strong and trustworthy in that fire with you, would you please email us at info@thecrossing.com so we can give you resources and support. And if you've never been baptized, that is the first and best celebration of a life of faith, a life where you are never alone in the fire. We baptize people every single month at the Crossing, so reach out today and let's connect. And this month, we are creating an event for all of the families in our area. It's an annual party that we love to call Hollow Weekend. We'll have more details to come, so you can invite your friends and family, but first, we would love your help getting enough candy to make this a really fun event for the kids. It's been a rough year for them too. So please bring candy donations to the Crossing any Sunday morning between now and Halloween. And if you don't feel comfortable bringing it in person, that's totally fine. Please send us an email at info@thecrossing.com and we will find a way to get your donation. Thank you so much for helping us with this. And finally, if you want to make a difference today, please give a donation to the Crossing. There's no better investment. You see, every day the Crossing helps people in practical ways and sees lives changed for the better. Be a part of all of it by supporting this place financially. You can give through our app or online, or set up recurring giving and never miss a chance to change people's lives. And don't forget to do your Finest Hour Guide this week, and we will see you online all the time or on campus Sundays at 9:15 and 11:15 a.m. Have a good week.